Okay guys, hopefully this will help you out with this whole bench seat installation that I'm trying to get in here. I just moved my bench out of the way back there. It's a 2024 bench. They should all be the same between a 19 and 24. This is a 22 van Sprinter 170. So it was a cargo, as I mentioned in previous video. I'll have a couple other video links below that'll help you connect the dots, but hopefully we'll summarize here and then give you the end result. So it is a lot of work, this project, just kind of figuring it out for your specific van and etc., the tools and equipment you have. I've kind of been limited on tools a little bit lately, but I wanted to give you kind of sources and supplies I'm using. Okay, these rails, which I mentioned in another video, are factory 66-inch rails that held 2 seats that I cut back. Now, I do like the Mercedes rails. I mentioned you could buy the aftermarket. I won't go into that in depth because there's another video, but let's go to what I did most recently. It's drilling the holes. I'm going to do the measurements one more time just because folks are asking that question a lot, I think, or need that information. So my measurement from the indent on the pedestal of the passenger seat is 25 and a half to the pin. The pin is the important measurement. Because of my things being cut, my holes aren't going to match up with you, etc. But just to give you where my holes are working, I'm at 22 and a half on the hole. Now, you could measure from this little screw hole thing that you may have, and that gives me like 7 inches even to the hole there, and basically 10 inches to the pin. Now, this position I found, and I'll do the rear pin as well from the indent on the passenger seat, because this is a cargo van. The rear pin is at 39 inches. So remember, there's a fat and a skinny front pin. So this is the factory end of the long rail. This is where I cut and drilled my own hole. You could go with the aftermarkets, and that's fine. I had them, like I mentioned, but the Mercedes are a little better. I did not want a big giant beam because I wanted my floor to be normal and not bulked up, because the cargo van has thinner flooring and will not kind of flush up as easily. All right, so here's some of the equipment and stuff you might want or need. I'm going to let you know the floor is not super strong, so I'm not 100% confident in this skin. So I'm doing a lot of reinforcing. In good conscience, I just can't like build it light. I got to build it heavy because of, you know, people sitting in the back need to be safe. So I'm using the grade 8 bolts. I upsized to the 1/2 inch instead of the 7/16, which is, they fit fine. You might have to shave a hair here and there, but these are 6-inch long shaft. And then a lot of what I'm using are these 2-inch. You could use the 1.5 inch maybe, but I'm going with the 2-inch. I might even be doubling up on bolt nuts on the end just to add additional strength. But you can buy different types of lock nuts. This one is from Ace Hardware. It is a crimp type lock nut. And then you have the nylon lock nuts, which they say under heat, I just learned that the nylon could melt. So I don't think there's that much heat down there unless you're right up against your catalytic or your exhaust or something. But and I used all this number 8 stuff, grade 8, I should say. Apparently the tensile strength or strength is up to 150,000 pounds per square inch or something. So I think that should be strong enough. So the weakest point, in my opinion, is the floor. So now how do I address the floor? It appears as though in a decent accident, you could rip even a 2-inch, 1/4 inch dock building 2x2 washer out of this floor. It could just rip through in a good impact, because the floor skin is so thin. Now, I do think the beam skin underneath is a little heavier, slightly heavier than the floor skin. So if you're drilling through the beam, which you can do on this side of the van, and I did do, that's why I went with the 6-inch. So I've got 6-inch, 2 6-inch. Actually, I got 3 for this first beam. Then I'm going, this one goes straight through the floor. Nothing's in the way. You're just working behind the drive shaft. And I've got 3, I'm going to use 3 2-inchers there. You probably could use 1.5-inchers, but I'm doubling up on bolts, just like I said, stacking them. Then I built these little reinforcement brackets, which I love. These came from Tractor Supply. So I've been to Home Depot, Lowe's, Tractor Supply, Ace Hardware, O'Reilly's. They all have a little bit, but in my case, I got unlucky. They didn't all have it at once, you know. So I think Ace has got a huge supply, and so does Tractor Supply, of the yellow bolts, of the grade 8 yellow bolts. So anyway, Tractor Supply had this 1/8 steel channel. I primed it already, but you can see that it basically has the benefits of a 1/2 inch almost, because of this angle on it. So that angle adds additional strength, as you know. And to me, that is going to be incredibly strong underneath to increase my chances of not tearing through the skin. So this goes underneath, upside down. And what happened here is this is like 10 7/8 long. It's fitting between the two cross beams perfectly. So it actually, I'll show you in a second, it actually overlaps really well. So I'm going to really reduce my tear through possibility. And this center one, as you know, only hooks in the rear, but that can be a real strong reinforcement. It does not hook in the front in terms of, there is no hook up front. It just sits in the front. The only hooks in the front are on the far ends of each, the first and the last one. So let me just go underneath while we're on this side. And I also did the same here. So I have two heavily reinforced extra beams of heavy steel that have angles on them. I would suggest going angle iron and all that other, if you can, to add strength. So here's my holes, and you can see that I'm putting this in here like that, if you can see that. So it's going to ride on the beam. Oh, wrong one. Okay, so I'm like, uh-oh, got it wrong. Yeah, here's my big one. Okay, so that's nice. So you can see where my holes line up, and you can see that I will radically increase my chances of not crushing this beam in an accident, and the tear through potential has gone up radically, strength wise. So as you know, I'll have one bolt here, and think about it. I have additional bolt here, so this plate has to be torn sideways and up. And that's going to be pretty difficult to do. I would wager you could lift the vehicle by that attachment up above once this is in place. So then I have my first hole that I wound up going right through the muffler shield. I probably could have bent that out of the way, probably cut this to get it out of the way, and bend that out of the way and gone underneath it, which I should have probably done, but you can do that now that you've learned from my mistakes. No big deal. And then here's my other little bar, which I like. Okay, so you see my two holes there. I have my front hole up there, as you can see. You see daylight. It's funny how you do these holes and the sun shines through your eye right when you're doing them. What are the odds? Anyway, this heavy beam will fit perfectly in here. So it was 10 7/8. You could go another 1/8 if you wanted. You could probably go full 11. But you can see that I'm overlapping on this rear beam. See that metal there, right there where I'm tapping? I'm overlapping that, and I'm overlapping that, and now she's pinned in between the two beams. The tear through possibility on this should be minuscule. So I'd have to tear through the floor, the lips on those beams with all the surface area, and the angle on that thing. I think we have some serious strength. Now that center one's good to have strength on. Now, why am I going this crazy? I don't know if it's crazy or not. I mean, you can't be strong. You can never be too strong, but obviously you don't want anybody getting hurt if you have an accident. Now, I probably would be dead already, being the driver, if this seat were to tear out, I believe. Now, of course, it'd be nice if the passengers survive. But I also have been using my seat in my previous crew van as a motorcycle stop. So the seat in the typical crew van, the reason I positioned it here, I think it's very much like my previous crew van, my 14. You have good pass through here, and you have good pass through the rear. You got plenty of leg room, and as much storage as I could get, because I usually carry as many motorcycles as I can fit in here. So what I was doing with my previous van, which worked well, was I was using the rear of the seat as my motorcycle wheel stop. So it was super simple. Go to the track, ride my bike right into the van, have a pad on the back of the seat, push the wheel up against the seat, and the seat actually has tie downs on the back of these legs, and I ran my two straps there. I could load the bike in literally 30 seconds. So it was great. It never moved. I left my bike in there 24 hours a day, drove around with it wherever I went. It was perfect. So the seat was a huge wheel stop, and some of the bikes were as much as 500 pounds, like a Tenere or two bikes at once. I would do two bikes behind the seat, push them into the seat, tether them down. And so I have a lot of force going into that seat if we were to hit something. Now, of course, you know, depending upon how bad it gets, obviously you're going to tear through anything. And those bikes aren't my friend in any accident. But I would rather be heavier than lighter and have a better chance of no tear through and things staying put. So we're going to be going on a trip soon with 3 bikes in here, one 500-pounder up against the rear of the seat. And I'll be tethering the rear of the bike to make sure the bike, you know, doesn't have all the opportunities in the world to keep coming forward. But so anyway, the last beam is the far beam, which is where the gas tank is. That's the unpleasant one because you just can't really get good access to it. And you'll see the other videos that are, you know, out there. And people have lowered the gas tank and screwed around. I'm going to walk to the other side now and show you what I did. And I did the cut into the panel or into the beam theory and get access to the directly to the floor. Now, this will be my weakest, you know, connection point at this point right now. But I did not want to mess with the gas tank. So as you can see, you got to be a little careful. Mine was right here. You can see these 2 wires, and I just wanted to make sure you don't hit these things. But I came back a hair. You can see my hole through there all the way. And I used a hole saw like this, 1 inch, and I made 2 cuts together. And I put primer on there, that's why, just to touch that raw metal. But 2 holes next to each other, and then I cut out the middle with my little vibrating Makita. Now I have access to put a 2-inch, I just made it just big enough to put a 2-inch monster washer in, 1/4-inch steel, dock builder type thing, galvanized. I actually wound up getting these at a dock builder because everybody else stopped stocking them, pain in the butt, nobody had them. And that's what I actually was going to do the whole van with, but I decided to beef it up further. So this fits in there nicely. You can manipulate it. You'll be able to get your bolt on. You'll be able to get your nut on. And what I did was, it's roughly 1 inch down from the top of the skin here. Because remember, this beam inside, or the floor, dips down. So it's actually already got like a 1/2 inch gain on you, maybe 1/4 inch, a little bit more than a 1/4 inch drop on you. So this is about just right. I'll be able to slip everything in with my fingers. I've already dropped this plate in there. It's no big deal to get back out. You can use magnets, etc. So that's my first hole right behind these wires. There was my mark. And that hole, as you know, was, I already told you how far it was from the seat pan, from the seat's pedestal. And then my secondary hole, same thing, 2 1-inch holes. You can see my hole through there. I did not want to mess with all of this. I probably could have just made this one, but it would have been a tiny washer. I don't know, in hindsight, you might want to do that, but you got to dodge the tank, and then you got to get some sort of washer in there. I didn't like the size of the washer. Although now I've learned that this beam material is, I think, a little bit more heavy than the actual floor pan material. So now I kind of would have preferred to have a piece into this beam. And then I would have had to have, you know, would have had to tear through 2 walls, but you would have had 6-7 inches of play, obviously, in a running start. But I suppose if you can line it up perfectly, or go back here where the beam opens up and bolt in, great. Here, to me, I tried to mark it all out, measure it all out. It just wasn't going to work without screwing with this bracket, dropping the tank. As you saw the other guy in the other video, this one starts to run into these wires a little too tight, but you could get in front of the wires, I believe, and do this one. I researched it under here a lot, spent quite a bit of time under the van planning this, so I just decided to do this route. Now, like I said, this will be my weakest attachment point. I have no ability. I could make this larger and slide in a long piece of metal, the bar metal like I showed you, the channel metal. Try all that, but I decided not to get that crazy on this side. I've got 2 sides that I think will hold up to some serious tugging. And that center one, where I typically put the bigger bikes, is going to be super tough. But let me just get back over here to finish this video for you. So supplies wise, Tractor Supply, a lot of yellow bolts. Ace, great supply. Ace Hardware, they have tons of yellow bolts, washers and nuts. Ace had these. Lowe's had these. Actually, Home Depot was the worst, I'd say, but they do have some. They were out of stock in my case. But you know, grab what you can, who's ever closest first, and you're going to have to just buy what you find, because you may have to put it together through multiple stores. So another little trick I used was my chalk line to make sure these pins were straight across the van. Did a lot of measuring to make sure these pins line up. You want it to lock in properly and not wrestle with you. And there's still probably be a little bit of play in terms of tightening it down. I'll probably try to tighten the rears down while the seat's in. In my particular case, the bolt's underneath the seat, so I can't tighten that while it's locked in. Well, I suppose I can't, because I got to put the wood floor in first. It's a bit of a puzzle. Floor's got to go in, then you got to bolt these in. Anyhow, let me summarize this thing up. Tractor Supply, Ace, Lowe's, Home Depot, and even O'Reilly had some yellow bolts. But anyway, the chalk line helped a lot. Snap it, pull any string, actually string in general, makes sure you have things really straight. And then, do your reinforcing. In my opinion, I would. I just don't think a 2-inch by 2-inch washer or just your basic washer is going to do the job. Now, because I'm paranoid, I'm going to do one last little mod to my fastening system. So the seat, the weakest attachment point, remember the most strength you need is in the front. I'm not beefing up in the rear. I'm not beefing up the fronts as much. I'm just using the 2-inch galvanized washers there because most accidents are in the front. Now, I don't know if that's a perfect theory, but there's a limit to when you gotta move forward. But my seat will be attached here with just the floor skin holding it in the rear on the gas tank side. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a custom seat belt type strap that actually goes around the seat beam. You can see that really nice seat beam back there. It's round. So I'll be attaching it to the rounded side, round beam there. And then I'm going to make like a seat belt type strap or a tie down strap, and I'm going to go to the D-ring. So when I put this seat in, I'll have that strap hanging from the seat, and I will have a bolt or a collar that goes to my D-ring to add additional tear out protection. So if this thing were in a nasty accident and the seat began to twist, or your passenger was sitting here and you started to get lift off because of an impact, and this were starting to tear out, I'm going to have an additional attachment point back here with a seatbelt tie-down type strap that is taut with a bolt type of a clasp. I'll show you in the end, but hopefully that helps you guys be as safe as possible and give you some ideas to how to reinforce this wimpy cargo van floor. Unfortunately, like I said, this thing is paper thin practically, and easy to drill. That's one benefit. And I've been using a punch to make sure I hit things dead on, and that's helped a lot. So hopefully this gives you some ideas, some sources where to get stuff, and speed this process up for you, because man, I've been doing this project a long time here and I got to wrap it up. I'm sick of it. It's got Florida heat kicked back in. It's in the 80s with mega humidity. It's like a sauna down here, so it's no fun. And then all the metal shavings, I got lots of splinters and kneeling on them. It's lots of fun. Anyway, I just cleaned up for you guys, and hopefully that helps you guys. I appreciate any likes and subscribes. Hit me up if you have any questions on what else I did or didn't do and supplies. Hope that helps. Take care. And you'll see my other video links below to add any more to the puzzle. Take care.